Alright, today is the 24th of April 2024. I am about to go in for open mat jiu-jitsu and have my ceremony and receive my blue belt. So this will be an interesting one. Stay tuned.
Well, I got my blue belt in BDSM, back, defense, being pinned in side control, and being mounted by sweaty men and women in the last 2 years. So there's a lot of questions, I suppose, when it comes to getting this thing. And it took me about 2 years. There's probably 4 lessons that I've learned in the last 2 years that hopefully I'll be able to take along in my journey going from blue to purple and trying to beat this statistic, which is called the blue belt blues, where essentially most people who start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu get their blue belt and they quit. And this is lesson number 1. Size and strength does matter when it comes to actually fighting and defending yourself, but probably more importantly, skill does matter as well. Look, I'll be honest, I've been going to the gym for quite a while now. I mean, I've even got a little barbell tattoo here to kind of show that I like the gym. And I've done powerlifting for a few years, and I'd say I'm definitely on the strong side for someone of my weight and my height. That probably doesn't really matter too much when it comes to actually practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The first few months of doing open mat, I've been consistently crushed by guys and gals who were 10, 20 kilos heavier than me, which is fairly depressing because I thought I could bench press 100 kilos plus, I could deadlift over 200, I could squat 180 and above. I thought that would have been a fairly easy task. Clearly it wasn't. I urge you to go out to your local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school and try it out for at least 6 months. You don't have to get to the point of me getting my blue belt, but I would say 6 months would at least give you some basic knowledge on how to defend yourself and do some open mats and get a bit of a feel of what a real life simulation is when it comes to being put on the ground and needing to fight for your life. When you get put into a situation where you need to defend yourself, it is very likely that your attacker is going to be a lot heavier than you. And having the skills and knowledge to at least understand how to get out of those situations will probably buy you some time to make a phone call or call for help, rather than getting pounded to the floor and being mounted to oblivion. My second lesson that I've learned. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is actually very much like powerlifting in the sense where it is very important to enjoy the journey. But this is where it gets branched out a little bit differently, at least in my personal experience. In powerlifting, it's a you versus you competition. And to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process, and as long as you're putting the work in, you're putting in the hard work in, you are going to progress over time. And that's the reality. You gain weight, you get stronger, you lift more, you lift heavier, you feel good. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the way to enjoy the progress is a little bit different. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, to actually fully experience the sport and the hobby, you have to spar. And in sparring, it's not a you versus you situation, it's you versus another person. Anyone can tell you that it's you versus you in the journey. I intend to disagree. It's a you versus someone else. Your first time you spar and the subsequent times that you come in, they're going to be people better than you, and there might be people who have just started if you're further along. You're going to always try to survive. The key is to survive, especially in my experience from being a white belt going to blue. The key is to survive against people who are a lot better than you, going from 1 minute to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. There's a thing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu called tap, or I quit. And it signifies that you are put into a very compromised position where you don't have the ability to essentially escape. And that's awesome, I think, because the beauty about it is that it forces you to try to expand your knowledge, get a little bit more creative, learn a little bit more, and enjoy the process of puzzle solving. And this is where it's slightly different from powerlifting. When powerlifting, you are able to see I would say pretty close to a linear progression over, let's say a decade. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the way to enjoy the process is actually to puzzle solve. And if you are someone who likes puzzles, and I think most humans do to a degree, most humans like to solve things. This is why we're people pleasers. I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is potentially a hobby you could look into. Lesson number 3, coaching. Like I said in the previous point, there are going to be people who are a lot better than you when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and more than likely you are going to be tapped out, put into weird pretzel-like situations. Again, back defense, side control pins, mounts. You're going to be put in this BDSM situation and you have to figure a way to get out. There will be times where you are going to be put on the other end of the spectrum where you are dishing out the whipping and not receiving the whipping. Very much like some things that you would do in the bedroom when BDSM doesn't actually stand for what I just said. Now, the truth of the matter is, you can ask people as to what you could have done better. And this is something that I do personally on the mats. I would always ask people, what could I have done better? Where did I go wrong? How do you do this? How did you come up with this solution? And that's the beauty of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You are able to ask these questions when you tap. Conversely, sometimes some higher belts will give you advice in the rolls or maybe after the rolls, even though you didn't ask for it. Now, this might come off as unsolicited advice, but the truth is most people who do that want you to get better. They want you to get better, and they give you these sort of advice that almost seems unsolicited, but in reality, if you actually just take it on board and not be such a hardhead about it, you will actually improve. And I think that's one of the big things that I found listening to sort of those purple belts and up, even blue belts, even 2-stripe white belts when I first started, just taking their unsolicited advice. And I think that allowed me to sort of get better at not being subbed or giving up as quick as possible. Now, I am not very good at BJJ despite having a blue belt. I just think my goals, at least in those roles, are trying to get out of submissions as much as I can. Yes, I have some favorite submissions, but truth be told, I'm not that great. But I am somewhat a little bit more competent at nutrition when it comes to coaching and nutrition planning for sports, performance, and health. Sometimes I do think asking for help is awesome, but today I'm just going to give you some unsolicited advice because, hey, the truth of the matter is maybe you don't think you need this, but you do. There's 2 things I think will help a lot in your nutrition. Number 1, click on the link above. It's going to take you to a page to download 150 macro-friendly recipes, completely free. Check it out. It's going to help you expand your cooking game, improve your creativity in the kitchen, and just give you some ideas on what you can make on a day-to-day basis to improve your nutrition. Now, if you're a little bit more serious, then of course you can click the second link here, which takes you to another page for a 31-day email coaching series that I've set up. Essentially every day you get an email from me that takes you about 30 to 60 seconds to read, and it's going to be tips and tricks that you can apply to help you create and craft your perfect performance and health, nutrition, food plan for your goals. Number 4. Now, number 4 is going to be a very interesting number. First off, why 4? In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we get 4 stripes before we proceed to the next belt. And the 4th lesson that I've learned in the last couple of years is that unlike a lot of hobbies out there, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teaches you how to quit, and it always gives you this feeling of inadequacy and sort of just feeling like you're not good enough, and you're just constantly thinking about quitting. More than likely, if you are like me up to this point, and if you're a blue belt or maybe even purple and brown, there is a very high possibility that you've quit more times than you've succeeded, in the sense where you've probably tapped out and say tap or verbal tap more times than actually succeeded. When you quit, all you have to do is tap, your partner or your opponent releases you from the stranglehold or the submission, you slap hands, you bum fist, and you go again. Very much like life, there are a few things that you might have to quit in order to succeed, in order to learn, and in order to get creative, but you never give up. And that's kind of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It allows you, it teaches you the fundamentals of understanding when to quit, but it also teaches you a very important lesson of not giving up. So as a quick summary, these are kind of the quick summary points that I kind of talked about in the entire video. Number one, size and strength does matter, but skill matters a lot more, particularly when it comes to trying to survive an actual assault or an actual fight. I encourage you to try out Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe for 6 months, or at least to the point where you're able to experience a couple of live sparring sessions to at least give you an understanding of what a simulated fight would actually look like. Number two, similar to other hobbies like powerlifting, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has the aspect of enjoying the journey. However, in every other sport, I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does it somewhat differently because it is a you versus someone else kind of situation. Therefore, the way to enjoy the journey is actually to solve puzzles along the way, not really worrying about your belt color, but trying to figure out the puzzle pieces along the way. Third one is coaching. Ask and you shall receive. I think in my opinion, if you feel that you are quite reputable already and you can give advice, I think you should be giving them out. And finally, the last lesson that I've learned is that quitting is totally okay. Giving up is probably going to be a lot harder. And I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has taught me that, because if I were to have quit, I probably won't be here making this video, and to be honest, I probably won't be here on the YouTubes. Yeah, that's kind of it. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully you stayed till the end. If you're interested, check out this video here, and I'll see you soon.